Hey guys, we're gonna try something a little different today. I've been noticing a pattern in my last few uploads where people keep asking the same questions or giving the same advice. And then of course you have the usual trolls. So I have a printed out sheet of some, what I feel to believe, meaningful comments and just some funny ones. So let's dive in, answer some of your guys' questions, and shed some light on what I've been working on and my thought process behind why I'm doing what I'm doing. Dude, you smell like poo. You must have been eating your own shit again, weren't you? Oh my god. This is Ham. This is our new puppy. Ugh. Okay. Jay Mundy says, it's time to get in the trenches. Provide demo buckets to dealers and they will have their regular customers torture your buckets. Let a few of those make the rounds if you were looking to go above prosumer and above. Ask that they record a video with their review. It's time to embrace the suck, learn, and evolve fast. You will create scrap. This isn't entirely out of the question, but you guys have to remember, I'm just starting out. I have very limited tools. I have it's like a $2,000 to $5,000 CNC plasma cutter that I built myself. Half of these tools I built myself. I just scraped up from everything that I had. I don't have the capital just sitting around to where I can afford to make 10 different demo buckets and drop them off at dealers. I have to be very smart with what I'm doing and where I'm doing it with my equipment. Elite Broker. Oh, this is from my air dryer video. By the way, thanks a lot to everybody who supported that air dryer install with Chris from Easy Air. Apparently he had a bunch of people come out, support him, ended up purchasing the air dryer kit, and he ended up selling out, and it's actually kind of freaking out because he can't keep up with the orders right now. But that's been awesome to see. But this guy, Elite Broker, it's called a desiccant air dryer. You can buy them anywhere. What some ignorant clowns. Your mom's an ignorant clown. Austin Garrett says, I'll be honest, I have no idea how I came across your channel originally, but I stick around for the transparency. I love that you're so quick to acknowledge that you still have a bunch to learn and are open to feedback and changing how you're operating. Keep it up. I love the hustle and the content, dude. Thank you. I appreciate that. Some positive feedback is always nice to hear. Reading through all of the know-it-all people on YouTube, it's kind of hard to sift through who actually knows it all and who are people who are just sitting behind a keyboard and spitting facts. Another thing with all these comments, like 90% of them are like paragraphs. So you guys are like, this is some meaningful stuff, and I've never wanted to be that YouTube channel where you scroll through the comments and there's like hundreds of comments and the creator themselves is not replying to any of them. So that's why I'm trying to do this a little bit. I want to try and reply to as many of them as possible, but it gets really annoying when people keep asking the same questions over and over and over again. And I'm just like, this is not worth my time to sit here and answer the same question over and over and over again. But I'm doing my best. Easy CNC Designs says, man, these are long comments, holy crap. People need to be educated on your product. If you just present it as, here's the skid steer bucket I make. Did I do that? Did I present it as just, here's the skid steer bucket I made? Maybe, I might have. The only people who will buy it is someone who needs a bucket and can't find anything local, or they don't look elsewhere. False. Most of my inquiries have been from people outside of my immediate 30-minute radius. And people have been coming to me because they've seen my bucket on advertisements and they think that it looks more heavy duty than the competition. So that's where I've been getting the majority of my leads from. However, if you make an extremely high quality professional product, showcase video that shows the bucket in use and then explains why it's better, yada yada, the people who weren't even looking to buy a bucket could be convinced. Probably. That's marketing, right? 3 best ways to sell a product are make it cheaper, make it better, or make it unique. You know, this reminds me, so this has a very similar theme to probably 3 to 4 more of the products, or 3 to 4 of the comments, if not all of them. People are like, what makes your bucket stand out? What's so special about yours? Why shouldn't I go buy somebody else's? Like, 2 things on that. 1, I can flip that around and ask the same of the other guys. What makes their bucket so special? What makes their bucket better than mine? It's all just sheet metal at the end of the day, isn't it? Besides the obvious facts and specifications that I've already listed, nothing makes my bucket different than theirs, except for the fact that it was made by me here in my barn shop with the tools that I scraped up together. So there's something to be said about that. 2, this brings me back to a Facebook video I saw probably about a few months ago. If you guys know what I'm talking about, it's with, I think somebody was interviewing 50 Cent, and he was walking, story short, he got into it, and he was like, I want to sell water. People, like, water is free. How many thousands of different brands of bottled water can you buy? What makes their water more special than the tap water I can get out of my sink, right? So if somebody out there can sell bottled water in a market that's completely flooded with competition, I feel like I could probably sell a few buckets here and there, if not a few other attachments. I'm not trying to dominate everybody with a monopoly. What I'm trying to do here is make enough to where maybe I can have 1 or 2 employees and I can quit my day job. This is what I love doing, and if I could do this full time, that would be the dream. At Toxic Tom 1967, you're selling the wrong product. Thanks. And you need to make it cheap. 8% is bad margin for a dealer. So I'm guessing this was commented on in that last sales video I made. If you would have finished watching the video, you would have realized that I have different margin schemes for different buying quantities. I believe the 8% margin I mentioned was for buying 1 bucket. If a dealer buys 1 bucket from me, it almost doesn't pay for me to make it. It's more of just like an introductory price. But if they start buying 5, 10 buckets, then you start dropping in price because I can make that up in sheer quantity. In return, the dealers get a higher margin. You're looking at anywhere between 20 and 28%, which just for buying and reselling, that's pretty freaking good. Which he goes on to say, yes, you don't want to sell to the guy who's buying 1 bucket, you want to sell to the dealer who buys 100. If a dealer buys 100 buckets, dude, you know how big that dealer's got to be? Like I said, I used to work for a super large attachment manufacturer. Most of the orders coming in, seldom they would be 20 plus. So that just gives you an idea. And then you just have a bunch of dealers ordering 20 or so items at a time. And that makes up all your capital. He says, find stuff that's niche, build it cheaper, use a plasma cutter to cut the parts. Ed, did you watch the video, my guy? There's a plasma cutter right there. And a robot to weld them up. So yeah, let me just buy a $2 million robot setup to weld my $400 buckets. That'll be great. Alexandru loves 9562. I don't know how to read some of these names, but he says, man, open up a bucket wash shop. To be honest, I probably make more than trying to sell these buckets. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Keeps my coffee warm. That's kind of nice. Okay, so that was a lot of comments. And then there's two people who reached out and sent me some very long emails, which I wholeheartedly appreciate because it means you guys are really thinking about what I got going on here and willing to try and help me out, which I think that, to me, that means a whole lot. Especially with just, I'm some random guy on the internet you guys don't know. You might be watching my videos here and there. I don't know. I'm not good with my feelings, guys. It means a lot. So first off, this guy, I don't know if he wants me to use his full name, but I'm just gonna go with Mike. Mike reached out the first time and Apparently, he's done some bucket work in the past, and we ended up having a conversation on the phone after he saw my sales video, how I wasn't doing so great with sales, and he offered a lot of great advice. But I'm talking, actually, I haven't even responded to this email yet, so if he ends up seeing this video, that'd be great. If not, I don't know. I don't know if I quite have the time to sit there and respond to each point. I think the best service I could do and offer him is to just try and implement some of his ideas here. But basically, he's going through here and pointing out a bunch of lack of qualities or specs on buckets that he wish they had. For example, he says that they don't really have a lot of attachment points on mini skid buckets. That's for one, I could agree with him partially on that. One being they don't have attachment points to if you're carrying multiple different attachments on a work site, so you're loading up everything onto your trailer, you need to be able to strap down your bucket if your bucket's not hooked up to your machine. Me, I usually turn the bucket sideways and throw a strap over the top when I'm transporting these, but if I'm on a trailer and space is tight, you might want to have some hooks or something to keep it from bouncing up and down. But the other point, which I think he's trying to make, and what a lot of people do, is they weld a chain hook onto like the top bar of their bucket up here. They're like, oh, it gives us something to pull to. I have been kind of shying away from that because depending on the machine that you're using, it could create like catastrophic damage. So I'm thinking of like a Vermeer, like a super high powered mini skid steer. If you put a point load right in the center of that top bar, you could end up just flexing that whole top bar and like permanently deforming it. If you can imagine when the bucket's being used, it's having the entire force of the cutting edge spread throughout the entire bucket. The second you weld that chain hook on there and you start pulling something really heavy, especially in the center, if you did it off to the sides, that might be better for the bucket, maybe not for the machine, but you do it right down in the center, and like I said, it puts all of that force on a very small amount of area, which in turn creates a high stress environment. And who knows, I haven't tested it out yet, but I'm sure on some of the stronger machines, you would end up bending that, because that's not how the bucket is made. If you guys wanted a specific like pulling attachment, we could definitely go down that route, but if you guys wanted to weld your own chain hooks on, that's fine, but sending it out as a manufacturer, you put that hook on there, people are gonna be like, oh, that's what it's meant to do. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. Like, I can't be held liable for something that I don't know would work. And for me to beef the back of the bucket up to the point where it would be able to handle those loads, that would skyrocket the price. So you guys starting to understand every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? I put that on, then I run into a whole other mess of problems. He gives me some design advice about how he likes to set up his buckets, and he did mention of that 10 gauge steel is pretty good for some of the stuff he uses. Yeah, 10 gauge for the body, 3/16 for the sides, seems plenty strong. That's definitely some advice that I'm gonna be taking and trying to implement this in future builds. So thanks, Mike, for all of that thoughtful comment. I'll try to do it justice. Ooh, my coffee's getting warm. Okay, this next email, very, very long email. And again, I have not responded. So hopefully this public recognition and appreciation is justice enough. Holy crap, dude. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. That's crazy. Again, I'm not gonna say the last name because I don't know if they want to, but this is from a Mark. A Mark from Canada. From Canada. Oh, I can't read all of this. Basically, I hope your day is going well. He watched my video on fabricating my first skid steer bucket. Just saw that I was struggling with sales. He goes through who am I, which is very well written. But basically, he's a 19-year-old engineering student from Southern Ontario. And he's lived on a farm his whole life, and he's got to use this equipment over it. So he's got some decent background when it comes to this stuff. He also wants to start his own fabrication business. creating some sort of equipment for the agricultural industry. He had a few questions for me, and he did a lot of research. He said he did a quick search on Facebook in the area, and it doesn't seem to be a handful of other bucket options out there, which is why I want to ask, did you see a demand for this product before I started? Actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna go through and read all of these questions for him, because a lot of what he's asking is drawing parallels to what a lot of the other commenters were asking. So did I see a demand for this product before I started? This is kind of tricky. So did I see a demand for the product, like my product, my particular product, when it just comes to my personal life? No, absolutely not. Aside from the occasional agricultural repair stuff that I did and some of the farm work that I would use, I didn't really see like a huge need for people wanting this type of stuff. I mentioned earlier in the video, I used to work for like a top 5 attachment manufacturer in the United States, and that's where I seen the demand. Midi buckets were one of the best selling products in that entire company, and that's what my focus was on when I'd say about halfway through my career at that company. I would have a dual-headed Yaskawa programmed to run 2 of these back to back. So we would try to pump out 20 of these buckets a day. So if that doesn't tell you that there's a demand for it, I don't know what does. You just have to find, what is the word I'm looking for? You can tell there's demand. You just kind of try to uncover it a little bit. The big thing is you want to make sure that before you create a product, there are going to be people interested in it, because the last thing you want to do is be stuck with a product you created along with the cost of the material and time. 100% agree, but like I said, I'm going to default back to what I just answered, is I've seen the demand. I just have to figure out how to work my way into some of that pizza, if you will. I've seen a lot of the big guys are supplying a lot of pizza, but I need to be supplying some of that too. Potential changes and improvements. Like many others commented, most consumers are going to go for the cheaper option unless your product offers a feature or something that others do not. And that's where I will again default to 50 Cent. If he can sell water, I can sell buckets. But I 100% agree, this is like 90% of what they teach you in school for business. I took a few business courses, you know, what makes your product different, what's gonna make it stand out, yada yada. I understand, but I've seen so many people sell things that shouldn't have never been sold. There's not necessarily a need, but they create the need, and maybe that's just marketing and branding. Maybe I'll get there someday. I'm definitely not there yet, but it would be awesome if people bought a Thyial Industries attachment because of the name Thyial Industries. Maybe that's what they did for 50 Cent, but I doubt it. For a bucket, this is hard to do because there's only so much you can do to it while keeping the cost down. I kind of agree, you know, a bucket is a bucket at the end of the day. It's gonna get beat up and its job is to move around dirt. He goes on to give me some design advice or changes. Color. Man, you don't like the color? I love the color. That's like my favorite part of the bucket. That's why I'm spending so much time and energy on paint, is because it has to do with the branding, but 2 weeks on the job, half that paint's gonna be gone. I don't care if it's powder coat or if it's an industrial like epoxy, it's not gonna be there at the end of the day. You mentioned just incorporating the tan color into my logo and then making the bucket gray. That's exactly the opposite of what I want to do, because all of the large manufacturers, they either paint their buckets black or gray. And that's because it fits well on the machines, but I need mine to stand out. I need people to see that it's a Thyial Industries attachment, not just another run-of-the-mill stamped out piece of steel. This is something that was made by hand in a barn shop with tools that I scraped up, right? You guys are starting to get it? I don't doubt that a tan logo with a gray bucket, that would look pretty sweet. But, I mean, then we're getting into, I have to paint 2 colors. Do I have to powder coat one and then paint the other? Or if I paint 2, that's gonna take me twice as long because now I have to mix 2 separate paints. Then my costs are gonna go up and my bucket's getting more expensive. A replaceable wear knife or a cutting edge. 100% agree. I really wanted to have the bolt-on cutting edge available right off the start. But the problem I'm running into is I don't have the machining capabilities to machine my own replacement cutting edges. Because if you can imagine, you need to have a plow bolt that has a flat head countersunk into the replaceable cutting edge that gets bolted up to the bottom of the existing one. Since I don't have those machining capabilities to do that countersink, I would have to purchase a replaceable cutting edge from an outside vendor. And from what I've been seeing is that the vendor hole spacing differs drastically from one person to the next, which could be a good thing for me if I only buy from that one vendor. But the problem is I'm so small that any of the vendors that I've reached out to will not provide me with any unless I order 1,000 of them or something like that. So right now I'm just stuck doing flat blade stuff until I can afford to buy it. But I do offer a custom option. If they have a provider for their replacement edges, I will drill the holes for them. I just need the hole spacing down. Rather than having thyialindustries@gmail.com, have a more professional email address like gage@thyialindustries.com instead of @gmail. To be honest, I think this is one of the more overrated things in a business where people are like, oh, you seem more professional, but what value does that really add? I mean, I might look professional on the outside, but the second someone gets a hold of my bucket, all of that's gonna be wiped clean. I don't care if I have a Gmail address or @Thyial Industries address. Once they get their hands on the product, that's gonna tell them everything they need to know. Screw my email address. You guys can take your own opinions on that, and maybe that works out for some of you guys, but I'm not paying that extra amount of money just for that. Maybe in the future when I can afford stuff like that, but running the business now where every penny counts, I'm gonna put it where the biggest ROI is. And at an email address, it's just not there at the moment. While you don't need to have 100 hours on a mini skid using the bucket, he thinks I should definitely at least get a few hours on one. So this is where I'm saying I don't actually have the equipment and I've never ran the equipment before, but I'm manufacturing it. And something big I want to touch on about this is, if you guys think the big manufacturers are running their own equipment, you got another thing coming. At the particular company that I worked at, we had a skid steer that we would use for like plowing snow and stuff, but getting down and dirty and stuff, dude, half the time we would release new products and they would not have even been tested. They get tested on the mountain, like, oh, it works, good. And then that's it. We start shipping those guys out because they're just sales hungry. The CEO is a typical CEO, right? Suit and tie guy. I shouldn't make assumptions because he might actually end up seeing this video one day, but that's why I don't personally test my equipment, but I give my equipment out to people who will test them for me. So like I said, with my first prototype, I sent that up to an excavation company for 2 months. They used it, they abused it, they gave me feedback, and then I made revisions and changes to fix all of those things that they suggested. For me to actually rent the equipment, use it for months, do this, do that, I don't think it's in the cards for me. Like the ROI, I think of everything in terms of return on investment. The time it would take me, the time and capital it would take me to rent the equipment or buy it, learn how to use it, because with all these different attachments. I tried grading one time in a full-time skid steer, in a full-size skid steer, and it went absolutely terrible. I don't know the ins and outs of what needs to happen, and for all of that time it's gonna take for me to learn that, it could be years, dude. When all of this time I could have just started. I could take years of experience, utilize other people's time, put that into here, so it's not just me doing it. Like this bucket, I may have did the initial design, but it's not just me. It's Connex Excavation. It's this landscaping company down in Waupun. They help build it. So you guys are helping build this by putting all of your ideas into here. It's not just mine. I'm basically just the coagulator. I bring everything in to it, piece all the parts together, and then I sell it. So it's not just me, and it's not like I don't know what I'm doing. I have experience in it, but I feel that other people's experience is much more valuable than mine. He basically thanks me, and then he hasn't sold his own product yet, but this is a lot of good advice. At 19 years old, I gotta be telling you, I was not thinking about this. 90% of where my brain was at was gym, protein shakes, and creatine. But you have a massive head start on me. So with all this information you have, like, you should have no problem getting into some sort of agricultural business. And to be honest, if you started in a few years, I wouldn't be surprised if you surpassed where I'm at right now. So that's definitely a huge compliment coming from me. Get back to studying for midterms. Yeah. Yes, sir. But yeah, that's the majority of the comments. I scrubbed through a lot of them today, and I'm sorry I haven't really uploaded any build videos lately. I've been really busy with these 3 or 4 buckets that I've been trying to make. I've been trying to figure out a process because I just hired a video editor. So I need to figure out how to get all of my footage so they can have it, translate the story that I have in my head, get everything into pieces, bring it all together, and then send it out to you guys. So my time's been cut short, but I've been trying. Doing a sit down talk video or a daybreak show like this is much easier for me to do because it's not 2 or 3 weeks worth of footage and then I record and take another week to edit. It's just a few hours and I'm down. Something I'm super excited for with the sale of that last bucket, I have saved up enough to get some new equipment. And what I've been debating on, so I'll tell you guys what I've been debating on. I've been debating on upgrading my CNC plasma cutter to a full 4x8 size sheet cutter with maybe a different hypertherm. That, or getting the Langmuir system CNC press brake, the Titan 25 ton. That would help with like smaller foreign pieces and I don't have to cut out the bend lines all the time. And then I was also debating on getting a powder coating system. Long story short, I'm going to be going with the powder coating system. Because this works, the brake press isn't as value added as the powder coating system. Being in Wisconsin, the weather's starting to get cooler. I got my stove on here, but this only heats up a small area in this 30 by 50 shop. And the problem with that is I can't spray liquid paint in an unheated, uninsulated shop. I have a massive torpedo heater over there, but the fumes from the liquid paint are explosive. So I run into a few problems. Now I can't make buckets 4 months out of the year because the temperature is too cold. So my solution, powder coating. A lot of people have shied against this, but I don't see a better option. Powder coating is faster, it's more durable, but the downside is when it does break, you're pretty much screwed. And it's pretty much industry standard to go with powder coating for attachments because I can pump out 4 of them in like 45 minutes when it takes me about an hour to 2 hours to paint 1 bucket by hand. What I'm gonna be doing is building my own paint oven, my own curing oven and a small spray booth. It's gonna cost me, I've calculated about $3,000 as opposed to spending $20K on a new plasma cutter or $10,000 on the Titan 25 ton. I think this is the biggest bang for my buck, which will also allow me to powder coat signs that I cut out here or other custom orders that people want. So I think it'll add a ton of value and I can do it in the winter. So basically I'm gonna be hooking up that torpedo heater, do a direct flame into a insulated oven. I'm gonna be making a rack. And yeah, that's pretty much the whole 9 yards. So with that sale yesterday, I'm gonna start acquiring material. So keep an eye out for that build series coming soon. It's gonna be relatively simple, but the ROI on that's gonna be huge. Anyways, thanks for sticking around, all of the diehards who made it to the end. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.